I'm totally against the cut. I think that the Seattle channel provides actual service and value. Do I think that Seattle channel should innovate? Definitely. You know, do I think that there's so much more Seattle channel could be doing? Sure.
I think that you need to have the Seattle channel that isn't just following press conferences and Seattle City Council meetings. I think you have to have some creative content that has to be done, but I think the format has to be reinvigorated, recalibrated to fit what this city looks like and what has changed in the last 20 years.
Well, welcome again to Unfiltered. I'm Enrique Cerna, and joining me, of course, is Debora Juarez, former Seattle City Council member and former president of the Seattle City Council, and also Omari Salisbury, the founder of Converge Media. Hey, Debora, have you gotten a job yet?
I'm taking a gap year. So I'm still trying that, but you're watching me slowly transform into a quote-unquote kind of housewife. Except I don't clean or cook or bake or garden, but I'm doing the other stuff. Keeping the wine stock going, making sure, still trying to do my thing over here.
All right. So luckily your husband does cook. Michael does, as I understand. You said, yeah, well, he should. I hear he does.
He bought me a Swifter.
I hear he does killer or fry bread because I don't know that you obviously didn't teach him, but he got the recipe, right?
Oh, I didn't teach him. My mom's recipe, and we're going to start doing fry bread Fridays here. So you're
hey, that sounds great. All right, Omari, do you cook?
I grill.
I grill too. Yeah, I grill too. Yeah,
all the men grill.
Yeah,
I got this ninja thing, and so that's that's really helped me. I got the air fryer, put the stuff in there.
Yeah,
you got the George Foreman. You got the George Foreman grill.
No,
I'm never home enough. Man.
Yeah, no, I cook. I'm not maybe tremendously great, but I do really good enchiladas and tacos, and I've learned a lot of recipes. I actually kind of enjoy it, so it's kind of fun. It's just all the prep thing is what drives me crazy. All right, let's get serious here. Omari, one thing that I want to note is that shout out to Converege Media. Since we last talked, you guys celebrated 8 years. 8 years. Wow, congratulations.
Man, thank you. Yeah, 8 years. It's been interesting too. August 18th, 2016 is when we became official. And so, it's 8 years, and people are always surprised because, excuse me, they think that Converge started at the protest. You know what I'm saying? And we had been in our community like for years before that. Even we had the morning update show on here before the protest.
Yeah.
And so it's always surprising when people realize it's 8 years. And so, it's been an uphill struggle, but happy to be here. We're continuing to thrive in our purpose, and trying to be of service to our community.
Yeah, not only the work that you're doing, really focusing on the African American community, but you've expanded out. That you got a show that partners now with the Fox channel here in Seattle, and that's pretty damn good, man. To be able to do all that stuff, so keep on going.
Actually, we renewed our contract with Fox 13 for another year for our show Back to Besa, and then we got a national distribution deal with Fox Soul, and then believe it or not, there's a distributor on the continent of Africa. They're trying to put some of our content over there and across 30 countries. So. Who knew? Just telling our neighborhood story. People used to tell us that what we did was too long. They was like, "Oh man, you need to make everything 1 minute for TikTok and all this." And I was like, "Man, you can't put no black story in 1 minute." Man. And the thing is, we never changed. But like now, you can do a 10-minute video on TikTok. Just we just always saw that it's like, man, we want to tell good stories and between the 5 and 7 minute range. And, I'm just kind of glad that we stuck to that and didn't just go milly-willy in different ways, because now we stayed centered in our purpose. And literally the world is coming to us. We're not chasing anybody. I don't say that in an arrogant way. but we're just still just doing the same thing that we've been doing for years. And now all kinds of different people, man, all over the country and all over the world, man, they're hitting us up.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Let's
The storytelling from your community and the way you've spread out, Omari, because you started when I started in Seattle City Council 8 years. So I knew about you early in your organization, and then when you moved to the new studio, it's been really, me and Omari have had what I don't call it constructive criticism, I call them struggle sessions. I've had our struggle session, but I've always appreciated that Omari came when it was, as a journalist, or is this a storytelling piece, how we do this? And I want to thank you for that, Omari. Not everyone comes at you with that kind of grace and kindness and understanding to get to know the person before, the cameras turn on. So thank you for that.
Yeah, well, and the fact that you are doing your own thing in a media landscape that's really challenging, and we'll talk more about that because there is an entity in the city that's being challenged. But before we get to that, I want to talk about September 25th was marked the National Day of Remembrance for homicide victims and murder victims in the country. And Omari, that's something that you wanted to talk about because, it's a bit local and personal for you as well.
Yeah. So National Day of Remembrance for homicide victims. And, I think even just, of course, the title speaks for itself. I think that a lot of times, because especially these days with so much violence, things are just put into numbers. And excuse me, we forget about the victims and also the families, and also, there's so many things that happen when somebody is murdered. Of course, someone is murdered, the family's impacted, communities, neighborhoods, depending on where something happened, you might have people who are scared to leave their house now because they're traumatized. And, it kind of goes on and on, but that was just a day to pause and keep those in our heart. And when you talk to people, and like tragically here in Seattle, I talk to people, I talk to friends, and it's just a very long list of people that we all personally know. Last year, the city of Seattle did a really nice event at First AME Church, recognizing victims, and they had like a roll call there and everything else. I wish I knew. I wish we all knew. Like how do we get to the root of what's happening, not only in our city but across our country, because it's crazy right now. But for people to be able to pause, and a lot of people, that's a day that a lot of people don't realize. But like every time that I mention it, or we play something, we have a few segments, it's always a look on people's face like, oh, and then most people unfortunately know someone. Right. Who, directly or indirectly. And so, for us at Converge, it's a day that we don't look forward to, but we also know that like we have a responsibility, to uplift the day, and especially uplift the victims and the families and the survivors, and let them know that, although their loved ones were taken away far too soon, that, there's still people and organizations and community thinking about them.
Yeah, it is a challenging time right now. Too many guns out there that are available for too many young people today to pick up and to use senselessly. But just having people impacted so much in their lives and their families is just tough. So, Debora, one of the things you've been working on, or recently you we're working with other Native women about running for political office, doing some trainings, talking about that as someone who's been there along with others. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's the Native Action Network, and it actually has been around for over 2 decades. It was started by Senator Claudia Kaufman in the day and Iris Friday. I'd like to say I'm also kind of the adjacent member because my girls start going there when they were 9 and 11, and now they're both in their 30s and they're moms. So they not only do workshops, but they've gotten phenomenal funding and support from all the tribes. We just finished one up again, another 3-day session up at Suquamish. They have a lot of electeds that come in. And not just on we focus on Native women and youth, but we also focus on not just running within tribal or Indian country. We just had we have a lot of cohorts that have run for office. And we just had Maggie that won and ran in Thurston County. And if you ever noticed, the Native American Caucus for the state of Washington has grown from, I think we started at 7 members to like over 100 to promote not just Indigenous men and women, but the Native Action Network focuses on and trains, like I said, Native American women who are professional. A lot of them are lawyers, teachers. Some of them have been on tribal council. Some of them are in college. Some of them are in law school. Some of them are just starting out. But getting them used to, like, what their vision is. Not so much doing what you see other political action groups do, where they'll say, do your stump speech or that. We were focusing on kind of tribal and Indigenous ways of knowing and being their authentic self, and not thinking or trying to mimic what success looks maybe to the other world, a white male. Nothing wrong with that. But I'm just saying that what we bring is different, and our leadership style is different. And I think it should be promoted and encouraged. And I think it should be, quite frankly, copied by other groups. And Omari always brings something up that I loved how he would say it without me knowing exactly. He was much more articulate, but that whole theme of, space for grace and let people evolve and teach people how to be leaders. And you learn how to be a leader by listening not only to your elders, and I don't mean that in a magic Indian way. I mean, like, people who actually have wisdom and lived experience, who want you to succeed, but will also pull you up short when they think you're getting out of line. And you need that. You need aunties, you need uncles, you need the Billy Franks of the world and Bernie White Bears. And, you need those folks, that big circle that gets you where you need to go. And of course, the Native American women leaders, we had Gloria Bean, Ramona Bennett, Allison Gottfredson, Maisel Bridges. I could go on and on. These are all women that mentored me. Terry Goldman up at Tulalip. And so it's just been wonderful what Claudia and Iris did, because they have daughters. And we just kind of all came together with our girls. And now it's like, God, it's just, they can't take everybody in these cohort groups. One of the women in the cohort group is a professor at University of Idaho at the law school. Another one is a nurse. I don't think we understood how deep the bench was for Native women in Indian country who want to run for office outside of Indian country.
Yeah.
And so it's been exciting. And that's what I've been doing. Been doing
All
a
right.
lot of that. So.
Okay, I just want to note a shout out to Abigail Echo Hawk and Aisha Ibrahim. They were named to the Time 100 Next 2024 list. And you know Abigail well, right?
Abigail, Lal, Colleen, the Echo Hawks. Excuse me. They cracked me up. Those sisters, there's 5 of them. And there's a brother as well. But they're Pawnee, and Abigail is just, I'm an auntie to Abigail. She's at the Seattle Indian Health Board. But I'll say one thing about Abigail and what she embodies. Besides being a poet and an artist, a storyteller, she's a scientist. And she really embodies this Indigenous way of knowing with Western science, and has taught people that data points are people with stories. And that's what she was the one that brought to the forefront, the national forefront, of missing murdered Indigenous women and girls, and the report of the 71 cities in Seattle being number 1 of missing. But I think the more brilliant aspect of this, and having her showcased, is that Indigenous ways of knowing is real. We actually have in us ways of teaching, storing, and looking at science, and being able to translate that and understand it, but also having the other side understand what we've always known. And if I can just digress just a bit, this is nothing new. And we can maybe come back to this later if we have time, because we are on the 50th anniversary of the Bolt decision. Long story short, the Fish Wars is out. It's being showed everywhere. But quickly, when I was listening to Abigail, I've been watching all of this, and then the Bolt decision, 50-year anniversary, tribes are celebrating it. And I went back and looked at the original opinion. But basically, what the tribes were saying back then was Indigenous ways of knowing. We know how to manage the resource. Co-management has to be an issue. And at some point, management will be an issue. And then we can get away from the performative politics of land acknowledgement.
Yeah.
So there's a great story in there about that. And it's finally happening. It's finally finding its way on paper, in ink, on media, social media, on TV, in documentaries, that Indigenous people who are stewards of the land, as they say, time immemorial, know how to manage fish, wildfire, the wolves, the bears, the buffaloes, reintroduction, land back. Those are big topics. And so what you see in someone like Abigail, she embodies that. she embodies that and she walks gracefully with it. And I'm just so proud of her.
Yeah, right. Well, that's great to hear, and shout out to her. So the mayor came out with his, Seattle Mayor Bruce Arrow came out with his budget recently, and perhaps the one thing that really caught people's attention was the Seattle channel. Full disclosure here, I have actually produced some stories for the Seattle channel, hosted programs on the Seattle channel, been on the Seattle channel as a moderator for different events. He actually won earlier this year for the mayor about dealing with gun violence in our neighborhoods and stuff. But under the mayor's budget presentation right now, the Seattle channel would be gutted. It would lay off pretty much a good portion of their staff. All the original programming would go away. They would just focus only on doing mayor's news conferences, other news conferences, and covering city council meetings. There has been a bit of an uproar about it. A couple of members on the Seattle City Council say that they're going to look deeply into maybe trying to restore those cuts. So your thoughts on that, Omari?
I think that's one. It's not a good move by Mayor Harrell. I think that what the city should be challenging to do is like, why we want to be bellwether and leaders and everything else, but our information technology or how we communicate to the citizens of Seattle, they should be doubling down and actually innovating the Seattle channel. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think the pushback should be like, yeah, restore the funding, maybe even give them some more money. So like, how can we make the Seattle channel transformational? How can we make that a national leader in television and serving the general public? And so, yeah, I'm totally against the cut. I think that the Seattle channel provides actual service and value. Do I think that Seattle channel should innovate? Definitely. Do I think that there's so much more Seattle channel could be doing? Sure. Like me personally, what's crazy for me as somebody who's in media is I don't understand why the council members don't use it more. Like, man, I'd be on there all the time. I'd have them shoot. Here's my weekly address. Here's this and that. You know what I'm saying, man? I would maximize like the channel. It's crazy. And so, like, if I was the mayor, he should challenge the members and his own office to be like, how can we innovate with that? I think it's a bad signal and a bad sign for them to cut off. What's crazy to me, right, is that's the city owned or the people's owned broadcast platform. If you get rid of the Seattle channel, you can no longer generally put out your message in ways and means that you want to. So now you're reliant upon other media that's privately owned who might have their own ideas and everything else. It was like, why would you ever do that? I don't get it.
Yeah. Well, here's another aspect of this before I let the former council member tell us what she thinks, is that this is such a minuscule part of the overall budget of the city. I mean, we're talking about a $1.9 billion general fund budget. But if you're shaving, if you gut the Seattle channel as they're proposing, it only saves about $1.6 million. That's about 0.085% of the budget. I mean, that's very, very small. So why? I mean, is it particularly when you have asked other departments to cut? I think maybe as much as 8%. I don't think they're going to do that completely. But anyway, it's such a small amount of money. So, Ms. Juarez, what do you think?
Okay, so I have two disclaimers, like Omari and you. I've been on the Seattle channel. I have spoken. Well, I talked to Brian, obviously. I think I'm
Brian Callanan. He's their host.
Brian Callanan.
Callanan. Yeah.
And I will. But let's get back to the budget part. So there's a $265 million shortfall. Across the board, people were supposed to cut 8%, but you touched on something, and so did Omari. And again, I have an opinion, but I'll get there in a minute. Just remind me to get there. The Seattle Channel is a city employee. They're part of government. So they're not like branching off like TVW did. Okay, where TVW and Danny Heck, and then they said, we're going to get private money. We're going to move away from this, so there can't be accusations of favoritism, and we can also do our own thing, and and still be quote unquote fair and balanced. And I know that with King County that they have a board, and I think two things. When getting back to what Omari said, I agree. I think that you need to have the Seattle channel that isn't just following press conferences and Seattle City Council meetings. I think you have to have some creative content that has to be done. But I think the format has to be reinvigorated, recalibrated to fit what this city looks like and what has changed in the last 20 years. And I don't think it has. And I don't think that's any criticism on anyone there. It's just that people have gotten comfortable in that setting and those employees. And I think we're looking at 7 positions. I believe 5 are full-time and there are a couple part-times, but anyway. And I don't know what the percentage is. I don't know if gutted is the right word, but if that's the right word, that's fine. Because I want to just focus on them creating the content that they needed, but also discussing what is the value added. And those of us that have been on the show, and I'm laughing when Omari was saying, like, if I was on council, I would be on that show all the time. Well, that's something that, and I'll be honest too, Brian and I have talked about this. I've never been that excited about the format because, quite frankly, you're not going to get vigorous debate. You're not going to get, people are going to go on there like I had to. I'm not going to go on there and show my hand and argue with my colleagues because we're on the dais anyway. We're already talking about these issues. You're not going to get a real, robust, honest, intellectual back and forth with your colleagues because you've got 2 or 3 people have to be on the show because people just aren't going to do that. And some council members would not go on a show if a particular council member was on, and I would go on with that person because I didn't have a problem with them. But that was always what me and Brian would talk about. It's like, I think you need to change it up. So there's an honest discussion about having politics and what's going on at City Hall that puts the elected in a position, as Omari was saying, if you have a particular bill or a policy that you want to get out there, but you're not going to get this debate. I mean, you just come in there and you kind of just, you get some prepping and you kind of know what the topics are, but you're just not going to get that kind of fresh angle and honesty, quite frankly. I felt like I got challenged more on Omari's show to talk about what was going on in the community and more comfortable than just, because it's government run. There's only so much they can do. And, going back to what you were saying, there has to be some reporting in creative content. There has to be beyond Seattle City Council meetings and just the mayor's press conferences. And you're right. I don't think it's a good move on the mayor's part, but I understand that he has to make cuts 8% across the board, except for police and where you can't do that. But at the same time, this could be a really good opportunity, as Omari was saying, for Seattle Channel to look at innovation, reimagining, whatever you want to call it. But also, like Omari said, I agree, like maybe more money. Maybe there's an opportunity to have a different format with more money and more community people to step up to be on the show.
Give these guys some money, man. I mean, because so that was good because that's your perspective as an actual council member, right? And so now, what if you looked on the other side of the coin, and what if the Seattle Channel was out there attending like community meetings? You see what I'm saying? Like, yeah, man, city council's cool. We gotta watch that. But like, that's a lot of what Converge does. But it's a big city, and we're just only in one thing. We show up at so many things, right? And unfortunately, lately, but it like might be community meetings around safety and gun violence. You see what I'm saying? And so, like, if Converge isn't there, a lot of times no one is there, and that's just in our neighborhood. There's so many neighborhoods in this city that have so many like issues, good, bad, and different. People are always meetings. They're having events. They're having this and that. Like the Seattle Channel really has unlimited content opportunities because they're just beholden to, you know what I'm saying, to inform the public about what's going on. So the Seattle Channel really could be that one place where you could turn on and really find out, oh, okay, here's what's going on, in a grassroots level or whatever in Ballard. in Inner Bay, in Northgate, in South Seattle, and everything else. It might be they need to stop wasting money doing all the stuff with them council members and take that budget and get out on the street with these cameras.
That's what I'm saying. Be reporters. Get out there. Because, again, it's so scripted and nothing again. It's the format. And I was kind of teasing Brian. I said the format, the table and the coffee cup. I don't think that works anymore, man. I think you got to get out there. Like you say, Omari, I will call Omari and say, this is going on. Are you guys going to cover it? Are you guys going to be out there? He's, we'll get somebody there. And I know they, again, take that money, reinvigorate, recalibrate what the Seattle channel should look like. And you're right. It has to have more reporting. And some of the shows on there, I just think are dated. I don't think there's an appetite, and maybe that's why people are cutting the cable and just not, it's not. Maybe just
well, that's another issue that they are facing is, they have received money, franchise fees that has been able to fund the channel. Those have been declining as people cut the cord of cable. I think it comes down to what is the responsibility of a city government if you're going to have a channel. And what is it going to do? What's it going to mean? I think that, you have to set up some standards so that elected officials aren't misusing a Seattle channel, but also using it in a way that informs the public well. I think the idea, I one of the things that I've done a lot over the years is I have moderated things in the community, conversations about gun violence and other issues and things like that. I think those are important things to cover. I think sometimes having the manpower to be able to do that and do it all the time is an issue. So, maybe it is a time to, let's look at what the Seattle channel is, what it's been doing. There's some very good storytelling there, I personally think, because I've done some of it, but also some of the people that I know. But
Seattle channel wins like 5-6 Emmys every year.
It does,
that's what I'm saying. Their ability to produce those stories and everything in doubt, man. I just think that on the real, they should spin it on his head. Whatever they're gonna do in studio, whatever. But I put it on his head. And the thing is, this city is full of so many content creators who are just looking for an outlet. I mean, you could literally have a show where you're just people would submit for free to the Seattle channel. You know what I'm saying? Put some parameters. It's 5 minutes, 7 minutes in my neighborhood or this and that. And so that helps mitigate manpower issues because a lot of this stuff is crowdsourced from the citizens. You know what I'm saying? Who are more than happy to take a camera somewhere or to do this and that and everything else. I mean, having your content on a broadcast channel, whether it's owned by the city or by a private company or anything, that's a big deal.
It is a big deal.
That's a big deal that to have your work aired and everything else. You call your family, friends, turn into this channel at this time. I think we underestimate the potential of what can be out there for the Seattle channel, especially if we just kind of look at it as Seattle channel's job is just to cover City Hall and things like that. Seattle channel's job.
Yeah. It just becomes a video newsletter, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I did a little research. Seattle channel, help me out here. I don't think that they have a board or a commission like TV. I was on the TVW board, and I think you were too, right, Enrique? Are you involved with TVW?
I actually, I've done some things for them in the past. It's been a long time. They do have boards. They do have I'm sure they have an advisory board. I'm on an advisory board for King County Television, and they have an advisory board. So, and
I don't know if Seattle Channel does that though. I know that they had a commission back.
No, I don't think they did.
23 years ago.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I guess what Omari's saying is really, really intense, and he's right. This is such a phenomenal platform for a crazy city that loves to do stuff. You will not ever run out of content, ever. And if you're still going to have a budget and you're going to just think, Omari's right. I can think of 10 people at the top of my head that would come and say, I can shoot this. I can do this. I'll get this to you. Nobody covered, well, I'm sure this is, as you guys like to say, a segue. When we did the huge fentanyl conference up at Tulalip. And it wasn't just tribes, it was everybody who was a healthcare provider. And so it's like this would be a chance to say, hey, it's time to freshen this up, man. Now we got, the light has been shined on us. We've been under the radar for a while. No one's really touched us. We've been pretty good just doing what we're doing. And now people are like, well, what's the value added? Well, how do we come into the year?
Maybe it's time to innovate and maybe reorganize and do it that way.
Just say this real quick, Enrique. Like, man, I mean, like, if I was at the Seattle channel and like you got studio and everything, man, I would open it up, you know, in some kind of organized manner, man. You know, I'd even have a contest. Here's, you know, I'd do a sports show in there. You know what I'm saying? It's Seattle Sports in Review. But then to get that show, you got 5 different people who submitted their reels. People in the city of Seattle are voting on it, like whatever, and then like they get the sports desk for 1 year. You know what I'm saying? And they come in there and they're doing, but like there's so many things that are out there. Like people want to be engaged, man. You know what I'm saying? People want to do stuff. If we just reach out to them, I'm telling you, man. Like, oh no, but yeah, you know, if I see the mayor,
nothing is more boring than sitting there with 2 of my colleagues that I see every day, all day, on the dais, in committee, regurgitating the same things. And I understand that it's information and, you know, you want to let the community. I don't know how many people in Seattle really watch that to say, oh, 3 members of Seattle City Council or my council member is going to be on the Seattle channel. I'm going to watch it to see what they're going to say. I don't know.
Well, I think it's time to maybe take a good hard look and see, you know, how you might
want some more money.
There you go. Okay.
Well,
I'll let you guys say that.
I should say one thing. I am going to be on
Ryan Callinan's show. Yes. His podcast. Yeah.
Podcast. Yeah. I told everything I've said here, I've told him. So this isn't
that anything means you're talking on Converge too, because you know that re-airs on Converge.
It does.
Just like he'll be on Converge.
The Seattle Storm Desk. Okay, I want to be the Nicole Wallace of Seattle. I want my own show, and then I have the Storm Desk.
That's what she wants more than anything. There you go. Yeah, that's what she wants.
I would love to take on some of the politicians and say some crazy stuff and say, okay, let's take this apart about how this is going to happen.
The judge. Here comes the judge.
Yeah, what are your deliverables? I saw your PowerPoint. Looks great, but let's get in. Let's get into it. That's what I want. Hey, that's the next job.
There you go.